Hey, I'm Deb McLeod from Hub City Turners in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, and today we're going to turn some fridge magnets. I'm going to show you how to make a fridge magnet. So we're going to go ahead and show you the process on how to turn one. So today we're just going to turn a little piece of carragana. This piece happens to be cut and the bark's taken off. You don't necessarily have to do that, but this just happens to be the chunk that I have lying around the shop. You can look at both ends and decide, because when we turn this one, like we did this one, we've got brown, so we've got heartwood and sapwood showing through. So you got to kind of think about that. If you want to get a pattern to come out, you kind of got to look and decide which end's going to give you more pattern. And I'm kind of thinking this might be our top. We might get a little more pattern out of this side. So there's more than one way you could do this between centers. I do it, you could put it between centers and turn a tenon on the end. I just do a lazy man's method. I just stick it in my chuck. I bring my tailstock up and I put this where as close to what I think is center on this end. I don't care where so much that it's sitting in the chuck, because it may have to sit in that chuck on an angle in order for this to be straight. So when I get this pinned in on center, lock in my tailstock and tighten it up, then I will tighten up my chuck, because now this is a parallel line with my bed, and it doesn't matter what's happening in the chuck. Once I get this tight and gripped, it will stay that way. So now I've got it in the chuck. Make sure that I have everything tightened up. Now the safest way to turn something is between centers, because now I've got this in the chuck. It isn't totally necessary to still have this anchored on this end. I just do it because it keeps the piece truer, and this is the safest way to turn. And when we're turning, we always want to be safe. So when I'm turning, I always wear a face shield. But today, if I wear the face shield, you're not going to hear me talk. So I'm not going to be able to wear it. But I always turn with a face shield. Another important part of safety is the dust. So I have a dust collection system that I run all the time when I'm turning, and wear a mask. But again, because of the videos, you won't be able to hear a thing I say. So for today only, we are going to do this not safe. Okay, I'm going to use a bowl gouge to turn this down, but you could use a roughing gouge, whatever your preference. If you wanted to turn it with a skew, whatever works for you, you can use. So I've got it in the chuck, and always before I turn the lathe on, I always hand turn the chuck and make sure that nothing is hitting anywhere, so that when I turn this on, I'm not going to have any surprises. The next thing I do, it doesn't matter, I always turn. I have a variable speed on my lathe, so I turn it down to 0, I turn it on so nothing's moving. So I can gradually turn my variable speed up to the speed I want. So if there was something wonky or something going bad, I would see it at a low speed, and then I would know not to turn it up. So I can prevent a lot of accidents from happening by doing that and just turning it up to where I think is the speed that I'm going to want to turn at. And because we're doing a small diameter, we're going to want more speed, because the closer to the center we get, the less it turns. So now I'm just going to come in and I just want to just get this down to round. That's all I'm looking for right now, is just round. And I'll maybe come across here and just flatten out my top. And I can only go so far because I don't want to rub my sharp tool on. Okay, so now we've got it round. Now we have to decide, and this is where the fridge magnets are lots of fun, because we can come up with designs on here that we might not necessarily do when we were turning, because we don't have to hollow these. So we get to really play with design. So now the trick is to come up with a design. So this is what I do. I go to the computer and I punch in vase images, a Google search. In fact, that's what it says right there. And it can be any vase. It doesn't have to be wood. You can use glass designs. You can punch in oriental designs, anything that comes up. And then I print them out and I keep them in here so that when now I'm sitting with this blank piece of wood and I'm wondering, well, that's good, now what am I going to do with it? I can go to my piece of paper and pick out a design that I like, and then I can copy it onto here. So this doesn't matter whether it's got a long little neck and a big bottom, because I'm not hollowing it out. I don't have to worry about the issues of how am I going to get that done. So it's really fun to play with those unique different shapes when you have a fridge magnet. And another thing I do with my shapes, not so much with a fridge magnet, but if you were going to get a little bigger and you're not sure, if you're having trouble transferring this shape to your piece of wood, if I know that my magnet is going to be inch when I'm done, or whatever measurement it is, 1.5 inches, I'll go take a piece of paper, I'll measure 1 inch diameter or across. And then I will take that piece of paper and I'll fold it in half. And then I know with my length. So if I'm going to have 1 inch width to make this work with the golden rule, I should at least have 1.75 inches or 2.25. I need to get this longer than it is wide for it to be right. So then I will mark on my piece of paper my length, and then I will just freehand and draw, cut out 1/2, open it up, and I have equal halves. So then I keep this box of all my little different shapes, and I keep them in here because at some point in time I may turn that again. And so here's a little guy that I've got a pattern of. So I could put this up here and know that, and I could take my pencil and I could say, okay, I need to mark my neck is going to be that deep. And then I would put another mark right where that hump is and right over here. And I know that I don't want to take any mass off of here. I want to keep the most mass here and take it off in the neck. And this is where the bottom is going to be. So seeing we have this pattern here, we might as well just make this shape. And I'll show you how that works. And you could do this for any of these other shapes, or you can eyeball it. But I find that this is a good way to design a shape and make it work. So I know that that's my neck, and this is going to be where the bottom of the vase is. So we know that this first line is where the neck comes down to. So we want to just bring that neck in. And all I'm doing is starting in the wood, rubbing the bevel, lifting the tailstock up, or the tail of the tool up, till it starts to cut. And then I'm cutting in. Come back, rub the bevel, pick up the back of the tool, start cutting. So now that's the line of where my neck is. So what I want to do now is take my parting tool and I want to define where the bottom of my vase is. So I'm just going to cut in here and make that defining line. So I don't have to make it all the way, but I just want to define it so that I can start to get this bottom shape. So now I just want to start at the bottom angle and keep coming back a little bit at a time. Same thing, rub, get your bevel cutting, and then move through. Because this is going to define my bottom shape. So now we go back and I look at this picture again, and I can see that this hump needs to blend in with this neck. So I can come and cut from this line to this line. I can cut that off now. So we're just going to go back and start past our line a little bit. Get that gentle curve all the way down. Now we can do two things here. I'm going to stop for a minute. Because when I was holding this pattern, I had it down from the neck a bit, I got this too long. And now when I move the neck up, so I can either leave this the way it is and just it'll have a little different shape, or I can go back and cut this a little shorter. And because it's a fridge magnet, maybe we will go back and cut it just a little bit shorter, just because of what it is for. If I was turning this into a little miniature vase, I would leave it that length. So we'll just remark the bottom. And then we can start by taking off more of the bottom. And we're going to take a little more off the shoulder. Okay, so now we want to come from both sides. I'm not taking much off. It's a lot easier to take more cuts. Can't put it back on. So now we just want to round this shoulder. So now we can check our pattern and just see. I know I can tell it's not quite right. So when you put the pattern up there, what I need is it to be quite a bit smaller and skinnier in this part. So I need to work, this shape is fine shape, but if I want to follow the pattern, it needs to come off more in here. And it's not a race. You want to take just little fine cuts. They don't have to be big cuts. You're better to take small little cuts and get your shape right and take a big one. Close. It still needs a little bit tuck on the bottom, but I need to cut this away a bit more and give myself a little more room to tuck. In this instance, that little knot or little hole would be a super pain, but because I'm going to saw this in half, this is something to note. I'm going to put my saw line straight through there, and that will disappear. So in this instance, this isn't a problem to me. Could make the neck a little bit smaller. There. So now we'll just sand that up. I'm going to move the tailstock away and do the top part. So this isn't held on by a lot. So when I'm going to get this flush to make these cuts, we want to go really slow and really gentle. Otherwise, we're going to snap that off. So now I've got it flush. What I want to do is just give the illusion that it's hollowed out. So I'm just going to come down into here a little ways, just so that when it's on the fridge it kind of has that look like it's hollowed out, but it really isn't. So now we will just give it a quick sanding. I'm going to start with 120. So now if I was going to leave this, or if I was going to decorate this up, I would stop at 220 grit. And the reason for that is, if you get it to 300 or 400, paint will not stick to it. Paint needs a tooth to stick to, so 220 is as high as you want to go when you're sanding a project that you're going to later paint. But because this is Carragana and it's got some character here in the wood, and we just want to leave a wood finish on this, we're going to go up to 400 on this one. So we're going to do a little 320. So now we've got that buffed up to 400. Okay, I'm just going to put a finish on this, and I like Ultra Shine. You can buy it at Lee Valley in Saskatoon, but this is what I like. It's easy to apply and it brings a pretty nice finish. So all you do is get a little piece on the cloth, rub it all over, and then once it's all rubbed in, you get a clean cloth and we're going to buff it. So to buff it, we're going to turn the lathe on, and we want some good speed because the heat makes this shine. You can almost see it starting to shine already. So now I'm going to just take this out of the chuck because I want to use this block to hang on to it, to put it through the bandsaw so that I can keep my fingers out of the path of the blade. Okay, so now we're over at the bandsaw, and remember that little knot that I had in the middle? I want to make sure that when I cut this through, I'm going to go right through the middle of that knot with the blade. So you really can't use a fence because of the shape of this, so I just hold it and eyeball it. So now we have it split in half. So now I bring it back to the chuck, and the simple reason I bring it back to the chuck and put it in there, I've tried to do this by hand, but this is so much easier and quicker. I just hang on to this, take my little saw, and I cut it off. So now I have two pieces. So now we're going to sand these flat on the back. I have the sanding attachment that comes with the Fordham, and I really like that. And all we want to do is just sand it and get those saw marks out. Okay, so now we're ready to put the magnet in. Now I use 3/8 inch rare earth magnets, and you can buy these at a lot of places. Lee Valley has them. I think Princess Auto has them. So because these are 3/8, I've got a little Forstner bit that's 3/8. So all I have to do is just drill in the back. Okay, that should be close enough. There. So now all I do is take some 5-minute epoxy and epoxy that in the hole, and then I would take it to the buffing system and we're done. We have a fridge magnet.